Hello there, welcome to the next video. We're now going to talk about response. Okay, so we've just done processing. We're going to talk about response. So we've mentioned previously in other videos that the response can be generative, transformative, reflexive, and sequenced. So what we'll do is go into a little more detail on what these mean, and we'll show some very rough examples in Ableton Live. So let's scroll down to here. Okay, so the simplest type of response involves the playback of pre-recorded or pre-sequenced material. This is particularly common in controllerist systems. So the Sancho plan, where drum pad controllers are being used to trigger back pre-recorded material, and Madian triggering clips of popular songs in his kind of mashup performance. So these are examples of sequenced playback. So in the Max project, what we've got here is we've done this with the use of these note sequences to play back these scenes in live. So when we play one sequence here, the first one, which is note 60, 62, 64, that's going to trigger, okay, that triggers the scene 1, and when we play the other sequence an octave down, the other do, re, mi, that triggers the one below. Okay, so we can just have, and we can do that just linking our controllers up and just playing back sequence material as well in the usual way by using MIDI map and so on, stuff we've covered before. Okay, so because it's not really interactive, it's more kind of reactive. It's not really discussed much in academic literature, but generative systems are much more discussed. It was a term coined by Brian Eno in 1996. There's a reference, there's the article for that in Cox and Warner, the Audio Culture book, page 226. You can read his article. So generative processes are those that are not under the composer or performer's direct control. Okay, and there's kind of really two main uses of these. They can be used in the composition stage to create a fixed piece. So like John Cage used the I Ching, used chance processes to come up with various bits of material that are then combined, and then they become fixed. Okay, so they're unfixed at the beginning and then they become fixed through composition. What we can also do though is keep these processes live, keep them real time, and then we can use them live, so the generative processes are actually happening live, and in this way we create pieces that aren't fixed. There's lots of different types of generative pieces. There's so many generative systems you can use. So we've used constrained randomness so far in weeks 1 and 2, where we've got a random number and then we set limits on that random number. So there's only a certain number of outcomes that can be produced, and they all work according to our musical needs. You can also use chance-based procedures, so there's a probability that a particular thing will happen. So Jiongwon and Song, the article we looked at in week 1, this talked about aleatoric music, so it's chance-based music. So you can set probabilities that something will happen. You can have process-driven pieces, often called procedural, where there are instructions rather than a fixed score. So you can, so for example, in C, performers can repeat a certain section however many times they like, as long as they don't drift too far away from other members of the group. So the pieces are indeterminate and they can last for any length of time, between 5 minutes and 15 minutes, or really however long. Because it's just a series of instructions, do this until something else. It's not fixed. The The other thing generative pieces might do is imitate natural and real-world systems and processes. So examples of this include the Boyd's algorithm, which mimics flocking behavior of birds and insects, chaotic systems, and there's links to two delicious tutorials that explore these in more depth. Okay, just a very basic generative idea that you can do in in Live is here. I've got a series of audio clips, okay, that I've just looped up, and then what we can do is we can use something called follow actions. So this is an instruction of what happens next, okay, after the clip has been played. So here this says wait 2 bars, okay, no beats, no subdivisions of beats, and then we can choose what might happen. So this means play another clip, okay, and this one means play any clip, including the one that's just been played, and then we have a kind of relative probability of that happening. So it's twice as likely that this action, so another clip, will be played as any clip will be played, okay. So we can go through and set different follow actions at different points and different probabilities, and then we know that one of these 4 is going to play, and we know roughly how often they're going to change, but we don't know what's going to happen next. So it's generative in that we've relieved ourselves of some control. So we can have a quick listen to that. Okay, it looks like it's got a bit stuck on that one. Let's just try and let's just change the probability here. Okay, try that one. Okay, so you get the idea. So that's follow actions, and yeah, releasing some control, having some autonomy of the system itself. Obviously, that's a really simple example. If you follow the links in the notes, you'll get some more complex ones. Okay, the next one is transformative. Transformative systems generate their output by transforming the incoming signal from a voice or instrument. Okay, so this is a very typical paradigm for augmented instruments, such as Ben Neal's mutant trumpet or Juliana Barwick's improvisations with reverb units. Okay, so there's some links to those things here. What we've got in Live, and I've muted the track to start with, but we've just got basically got some delay-based effects here that are just transforming the live input. Okay, so we can hear what those are doing, and if you sing something, you'll get much more interesting results than just speaking. So, okay, that's gives you some indication of what a transformative system might do. Then you can hook up other controls to the various device parameters, and it gives you more control over what the system is doing. Maybe automate those to song position and so on. Okay, the last section, reflexive systems use representational data from vocal or instrument and uses this data to present a novel response. So these types of system are often used in improvisational settings to generate musical ideas or for jazz performance. So a good example of these is, say, with a jazz soloist. The jazz soloist takes a solo and then they stop, and the system recognizes when they stop and then plays something back. And what it plays back is a representation of what it's just heard. So it'll take some of the notes and reorder those, take some of the phrases, do something with those. So it's recognizable from the system input, but it's also novel. So interactions with these systems are usually conversational and involve turn taking. There's some links here. This is to John Biles's GenJam system being used for sort of traditional jazz performance, with an explanation of it. Pache's continuator is used in educational settings with kids, and got them basically to play on a keyboard, and then the system would then play them something back. And there's some great videos of this where you see the delight on their faces as this system plays back what it's just heard, but has some kind of novel response. You can have a look. This isn't really a reflexive device in the same way, but what this is doing is recording the live input and then just playing it back and mangling it slightly. So it's kind of reflexive. You can set it just to play back when it doesn't hear anything, so you can link it to the input volume, so it's only active when nothing is playing. That can work, and you can kind of improvise with a kind of looped playback of your own recording. So you can experiment with that a little bit. Okay, finally, most systems are hybrid in that they make use of several types of response. So we mentioned Biles's GenJam. It uses reflexive algorithms for the machine soloist, but then the human performer and the machine soloist perform over a sequenced backing track for the rhythm parts. If you follow this link here to one of my pieces called Church Bells, this uses a combination of generative processes for the bells, transformative processes for the vocal effects, and then a sequenced rhythm track. So you can have a look at that and see if you can identify those processes. Okay, so further study, there's a link here to WeDrums, the Live API, machine learning, artificial intelligence. So some of this processing stuff gets into the realms of artificial intelligence, as we've kind of mentioned with the Biles stuff. And then there's some great books by Rowe on interactive systems, which are on the reading list, and they go into much more detail about this. Okay, hope that's been useful and gives you some ideas about what you might do for your projects.